It was a complete object lesson fail. Almost as big. Wait for it. As the time I fell off a building trying to show my kids how unsafe it was. This happened about 6 months after the gambling fiasco. It was on a Saturday, and we were on our way home from seeing a movie. All of us except that same son, Joshua. He had slept over with friends that night, the night before, and had decided to come home earlier than we had planned. So, when he got home, the house was all locked up, except for a window on the 3rd floor. Since he had forgotten his house keys, and because he was a teenage boy, he decided to climb. When we pulled into the driveway, the front door was open, and out walked Josh. He explained proudly what had happened and pointed to the railing and then the window ledge. He proceeded to tell us all how he had scaled the building to get in the window. I could not believe it. I thought my son knew better than to scale a 3-story building. The route my spider boy had decided to take was directly above a long drop onto the rocks and a few little shrubs scattered next to them. My other kids were, of course, listening to him intently. They thought he was so brave, so skilled. So I interrupted his story. After 4 kids, I also had the "that's not safe" speech memorized. And so I let them have my best version. And then, for some unknown reason, still unknown to me, I decided to show my children how unsafe it was. How stupid it was to do something that would gamble with one's safety. I explained to them what could have happened. I had them all come and look over the ledge at the sharp rocks below. Their eyes widened. They all stepped back. Oh, and then, for dramatic effect, I added a visual aid. I stood on the wooden railing and leaned over the edge as far as I could. And that's when I heard a breaking sound and someone scream. I later found out it was me that screamed. I should have used an orange. The next thing I knew, I was laying on the rocks I had just pointed out to my kids. I couldn't move, and my arm hurt. I remember my daughter's face. She was kneeling beside me, holding my arm and crying. My husband was running down the hill to get to me, and Spider Josh was on the phone with the police dispatcher. I kept going in and out of consciousness, and each time I came back around, I would look up and say, "Did I fall?" And each time, my husband would say, "Yes, you fell." I had become my own ultimate object lesson. The ambulance arrived, and soon I was at the hospital prepping for surgery on my wrist. I now have a 7-inch scar, visual aid, on my right arm where they put in pins and fixed me up. I spent a week in the hospital, but I don't remember much of it because I also had a pretty bad hit to the head. But I definitely taught my kids about safety that day. Message received loud and clear. Although I would not recommend my method. So my question is this. When it comes to parenting, what are the lessons we need to teach by example? And which lessons do our children need to learn on their own? What are the things we tell our children not to do and then just leave it at that? We don't teach our kids to stay away from drugs by introducing them to the drug dealer down the street. And we don't teach our kids not to hurt people by showing them what it feels like to be hurt. This parenting thing is pretty tough sometimes. At the end of the day, I think all we can do is go with our gut. Sometimes motherhood is simply trial and error. Sometimes being a mother is just like when my son bought that lottery ticket. As mothers, we hope for the best, sometimes while expecting the worst. And in the end, maybe we end up pleasantly surprised. If one object doesn't work, try something else. We ended up talking to our Vegas-bound son, and it turns out all we had to do was tell him he was very unlikely to ever get 10 times his investment again, and that logic was good enough for him. Turns out he didn't need any visual aids after all. Hopefully, one day, my children will grow up and become parents themselves. They will teach their kids all sorts of important lessons. They will take all they have learned in this life and use it with a bit of trial and error. And I'm hoping my kids will raise their own children without any traumatic, over-the-top, fruit-murdering, sure to require therapy later in life object lessons. Because, let's be honest, they can go to Grandma's house for that.